Good morning and welcome to the Deep Dive. In a world where, the sheer volume of global news can easily generate anxiety and static, we're here to offer something a little different today.
Right, something a lot of people are desperately looking for, which is clarity.
Exactly. Think of this as your classic evening news anchor desk. It's calm, it's professional, and it's entirely objective. We are delivering the facts on current events, but without all the fear-mongering.
Which is exactly what this global situation requires. I
Yeah.
mean, we are analyzing the board as it actually is, not as panic might paint it.
And to do that, we're bringing you a highly specific mission today. This deep dive is sponsored by ProWave AI and is generated by Stylo News, which is an AI-powered news application. But here is the critical context for you, the listener.
Yeah, this part is important.
Stylo News is actually the consumer version of Stylo Intel Ops. And that's a software platform designed specifically for enterprise operations, government agencies, the military, and, top business decision makers.
Meaning you are getting unique executive-level access to the exact same intelligence synthesis tools used by global leaders to navigate all these complex geopolitical landscapes.
So today we are opening the Stylo News Intel update, specifically the Asia Situation Report for the 10th of August 2026.
Right, and we're going to take a strategic tour of the region. We'll be analyzing conflict zones, flashpoints, and the perspectives of key decision makers across China, North Korea, Southeast Asia, and South Asia.
And we're keeping it strictly to assessed facts and the most likely near-term events. So let's jump right into the most prominent question on the international board, the one that generates the most anxiety.
Is China about to launch a full-scale attack on Taiwan?
Exactly. We've run the intelligence across hundreds of sources, and the assessment for the immediate term is, well, a firm no.
Right. The data simply does not support an imminent kinetic conflict, meaning, a traditional active shooting war.
Right.
When analysts look for a massive amphibious invasion, they aren't looking at political speeches. They look for massive, undeniable physical indicators.
Like what kind of indicators?
Well, you would see broad surges in fuel staging, the widespread mobilization of civilian reserve ferries, and most grimly staging massive blood banks near embarkation ports.
Wow. Yeah, I guess you really can't hide the logistical footprint of moving hundreds of thousands of troops across a strait.
You can't, and right now, those indicators are completely missing.
Okay, so we aren't looking at a sudden tiger strike. It's more of a boa constrictor strategy. Instead of a sudden strike, they're moving the fence line into your neighbor's yard an inch a day, so they barely notice.
That is the perfect way to visualize it. In military terms, we call it gray zone coercion.
But let me push back on that. If they aren't invading, what are they doing with all these ships and planes?
They are rehearsing a blockade, essentially.
Right.
They operate deliberately in the gray space just below the threshold of open warfare to normalize a heightened military presence.
Right.
For example, Taiwan's Ministry of National Defense recently reported 17 People's Liberation Army aircraft sorties. Those are individual combat missions.
In a single window, right?
Yes, with 12 of them crossing the median line of the Taiwan Strait. And simultaneously, Chinese Coast Guard vessels are pushing east of Taiwan.
But isn't parking armed Coast Guard vessels on the Pacific-facing side of the island basically an act of war? I mean, that's Taiwan's lifeline for outside food and energy. At what point does this gray zone just become a siege?
It's a vital question. In international law, a formally declared blockade is an act of war, but China isn't declaring one.
Oh, I see.
Right, they are conducting customs inspections and maritime patrols. By keeping it under the umbrella of domestic law enforcement rather than a military strike, they severely complicate the diplomatic trigger for a U.S. or allied military response.
So it forces Taiwan to make the first kinetic move if they want to break the cordon.
Exactly.
So Taiwan is being forced to adapt. The intel shows their current Hong Kong military exercises are entirely focused on this exact threat. They aren't just practicing to repel a D-Day-style beach landing anymore.
Right. They are completely focused on counter-blockade survival.
Yeah, they are decentralizing their command so units can fight if communications are jammed, and they are integrating U.S. systems like HIMARS.
Right, the highly mobile artillery rocket system.
Yeah, essentially truck-mounted long-range rocket launchers that can fire and immediately relocate before the enemy can target them. They make approaching the island highly lethal.
And this reality is actually reflecting in public sentiment. When you look at social media platforms like X specialized security accounts, like war alerts, they aren't panicking about paratroopers dropping tomorrow.
The conversation has matured.
Exactly. The prevailing view among the public isn't fear of an imminent invasion. It's focused on creeping pressure, like anticipated cyber attacks on power grids and port infrastructure.
It's a shadow war of infrastructure.
Yeah.
And that transitions perfectly into the broader South China Sea because we are seeing that exact same boa constrictor tactic replicated at Scarborough Shoal.
The mechanics are identical. China is running joint naval and air drills around the shoal aimed at pressuring the Philippines.
But they haven't achieved full control, right?
No, uncontested control remains elusive. And that's due to growing regional resistance, unease among ASEAN nations, and of course, the continuous presence of U.S. forces ensuring freedom of navigation.
But here's where the shadow war moves off the water and into the laboratory. Because the broader rivalry isn't just territorial, it's technological. The U.S. and allies are responding beyond just military presence.
Right, the tech war.
Yeah, the U.S. government is actively proposing targeted AI-related technology curbs, specifically trying to cut off Chinese optical module manufacturers.
The logic there being, if you restrict the hardware, you slow down the adversary's capability to develop advanced military artificial intelligence.
I look at this and wonder how effective these tech curbs can actually be, though. We are seeing massive internal momentum within China.
Oh, absolutely.
Like the Chinese AI firm DeepSeek is rapidly advancing what are known as agentic AI models. These are cost-effective AIs that can independently chain tasks together. And China literally just launched its first robot school to aggressively scale robotics education.
The internal push is massive.
It is. But let's look at this fascinating, surprising detail from the intel. To run these massive AI models, you generate an incredible amount of heat.
An unbelievable amount.
So to cool these chips, China is massively expanding its lab-grown diamond industry specifically for AI chip cooling. Because diamonds are one of the most efficient thermal conductors in the known universe.
It is a brilliant lateral solution to a physical bottleneck. If you are cut off from the global supply chain of advanced cooling hardware, you engineer a new substrate. They are literally growing their way out of a hardware embargo.
It just shows how interconnected this all is. And while this tech maneuvering is happening, we also see these subtle diplomatic shifts. China recently closed the Israeli consulate in Chengdu.
Right. Officially, Beijing claims this is tied to their criticism of Israel's actions in Gaza and their push for a ceasefire.
But what does the intel assessment say?
It's viewed as normal diplomatic evolution rather than a malicious severing of ties. Closing a consulate in Chengdu, rather than the embassy in Beijing, allows China to position itself favorably with Middle Eastern partners without completely destroying its economic relationship with Israel.
It's just a calculated gesture. Speaking of moving pieces, I do want to offer a brief fun fact to contrast all these terrestrial tensions.
Would use one.
We just saw NASA astronaut Chris Williams return safely after an 8-month mission aboard the International Space Station. A nice reminder that high above the atmosphere, international collaboration is still managing to function.
That's a great perspective to keep in mind.
But coming back down to Earth, let's follow these hardening alliances over to the Korean Peninsula. The U.S. and Japan are shifting their posture, and Japan's recent defense white paper explicitly named China as its top challenge.
Which has triggered a massive explosive reaction from Pyongyang.
Yeah, North Korea is furious about the U.S. command upgrade in Japan and Japan's militarization. They are warning that a regional conflict is only a matter of time.
But again, separating the rhetoric from the reality, the intel shows zero tactical military incidents.
None.
None. There are no sudden troop mobilizations and no forward deployments of artillery units to the border.
But they didn't do nothing. North Korea did launch a short-range ballistic missile from Wonsan just ahead of the U.S. and Republic of Korea joint military drills.
Right, but that is their standard pattern. It's a controlled provocation. From the perspective of the decision-makers in North Korea, this is viewed as necessary deterrence against a militarizing Japan.
Meanwhile, South Korea has made a major pragmatic shift on their end.
This is huge.
It is. They are moving away from demanding the immediate total denuclearization of the North and instead focusing on a freeze of the North's nuclear program.
It's a massive acknowledgement of the current reality, accepting that the weapons exist and pivoting to containment.
But there is a physical manifestation of these changing global alliances that we need to examine. North Korea and Russia are completing a new border bridge. Why does this bridge matter so much right now?
It matters because it's designed to facilitate troop and arms transfers amid the broader Ukraine conflict.
Right.
The conflict there is escalating. We're seeing Ukraine launch deep drone strikes on Russian oil refineries. Russia desperately needs munitions to sustain its rate of fire, and North Korea has those stockpiles. This new bridge is a physical tether linking the Asian and European security theaters.
It's amazing what captures the public's attention amidst all this, though. When you analyze the social media sentiment on X, reports from Daily NK showing Kim Jong-un at a Victory Day event with his daughter, Kim Ju-ae, generated a lot of curious sentiment.
Right, focused on succession?
Yeah, they weren't alarmed about war. They were just curious about who's next in line. Conversely, reports of Japan testing Tomahawk cruise missiles generated highly tense sentiment among users.
The public is brushing off Pyongyang's theatrical launches, but they are acutely anxious about the long-term arms race in Japan.
Exactly. And that anxiety over structural security shifts our focus westward to South Asia. The dynamic changes here, though.
It does. While full-scale interstate war is unlikely, the risk of subconventional limited escalation is highly elevated, particularly between India and Pakistan.
When we say subconventional, we are talking about localized militant violence, proxy groups, that sort of thing.
Yeah?
What does this threat picture look like on the ground?
It's a highly volatile mix.
Yeah.
There are alleged ISI-backed terror modules that were recently disrupted in India. We've seen militant attacks in Jammu and Kashmir.
And on the conventional side?
Pakistani deployment of up to 250 Chinese-made howitzers near contested border areas. Furthermore, there's a potential China-Bangladesh J-10CE fighter jet deal that could alter the regional military balance on India's eastern flank.
Right, forcing India to reallocate anti-aircraft resources away from Pakistan and China to cover that eastern border.
Exactly.
And it's not just the borders that are tense. India is undergoing a generational political shift internally, highlighted by recent youth protests. But despite that, they are rapidly upgrading their railway infrastructure along the Pakistan, China, and Bangladesh borders.
Which is all about enhancing strategic mobility. Moving troops by rail takes days instead of weeks. It drastically improves their rapid response capability.
It all comes back to infrastructure.
Yeah.
But managing complex borders is difficult, especially when there's transnational spillover. And that brings us to Southeast Asia.
Right, where internal instability is bleeding over borders. Look at Myanmar. The military leader, Min Aung Hlaing, recently visited Thailand in search of international legitimacy amidst Myanmar's civil war.
But the instability doesn't just stay in Myanmar. We are seeing armed ethnic groups protecting massive scam syndicates right on the Thai border, actively threatening Thai stability.
It is the definition of transnational spillover.
And unfortunately, it's a broader regional pattern of crime and tragedy. Malaysia is currently facing intense scrutiny as a growing regional drug transit hub. And we also soberly have to report on a tragic school shooting in Nonthaburi province near Bangkok that left 7 people dead.
It's a heavy reminder that internal security and human fragility often take precedence over international relations, which is exactly why we're seeing intense ASEAN diplomatic efforts right now to balance this bad news.
Like what?
Well, Indonesian President Prabowo Subianto and Thai Prime Minister Anutin Charnvirakul are forming a strategic partnership. The goal is to anchor ASEAN unity and drive economic prosperity to resist these internal and external pressures.
We have covered an immense amount of ground today. Based on the objective synthesis of all this intelligence, what are the most likely events our listeners should watch for in the coming weeks?
If we distill this down, watch for 4 things. First, expect continued gray zone blockade drills around Taiwan. Second, anticipate localized maritime friction in the South China Sea.
Right.
Third, watch for further short-range missile tests from North Korea tied to allied drills. And finally, expect ongoing subconventional border friction in the India-Pakistan theater and between Thailand and Myanmar.
That is a highly precise look ahead. And I want to fulfill our specific sponsor requirement here and remind you, you don't have to wait for us to give you this level of analysis.
Absolutely not.
You can customize your own personal intelligence-style briefs, pulling from hundreds of news sources in X by downloading the app and subscribing at www.stylonews.com. You'll get AI-powered news on demand.
It's an exceptional tool for cutting through the static.
It truly is. Now, dropping the Anchor Desk personas for a moment, we just want to thank you deeply for spending your morning with us. We know how overwhelming the news cycle can be, and we appreciate you choosing to dive into these issues with us.
Yes, thank you for listening.
Please, reach out and request topics for future deep dives, and be sure to follow Stylo News on your favorite social media platforms. But before we go, I think we have one final provocative thought to leave the listener with today.
We do. We've talked today about China building robot schools and massive lab-grown diamond arrays to cool AI chips, right? Well, at the exact same time, the U.S. Army is simultaneously advancing laser weapon contracts for drone defense.
Right.
So as the geopolitical map shifts, ask yourself this. Are the borders of the future going to be drawn by physical military presence or by who controls the autonomous infrastructure running quietly in the background?
A fascinating thing to mull over.
Yeah.
We'll see you next time.